All right, guys. So I just finished my first jujitsu class in almost 4 months. It's been almost 4 months since I was in. So just to give you guys a little backstory, and I didn't say anything about this at the time, but in late February of this year, I actually was jumped by two meth heads. All right. So my apartment actually is on the ground floor, and there's no hallway. When you open our front door, you're literally right on the sidewalk of an area that's in kind of it's a downtown area, but there's a lot of homeless people, right? A lot of drug addicts. So my apartment complex, my door is one of five other doors. These are old storefronts that have been converted into loft apartments. So, long story short, one night after getting off work, I come home, I take a shower, have dinner. I'm sitting there with my wife, and we hear screaming outside. I go to the front door, and I open it, and my neighbor from all the way down at the other end of the building has run down to my apartment, and she, quickly runs into my apartment. We close the door, we ask her what's going on, and she tells us that two, basically meth heads, were shooting up on her front step, right where her door is. She tried to get them to leave, and when she opened the door, one of them stood up, opened the door, and came into her apartment. So she ran down to our apartment screaming. So, and put my clothes on, and I step out into the sidewalk, and I look down towards her apartment where I see these two meth heads. I go down and completely trying to de-escalate the situation. I'm like, hey, listen, you guys have got to go. One of the guys says, listen, this is a public sidewalk and this is a business. I'm like, no, this is not a business, and no, this is not a public sidewalk. Where you're at is in front of somebody's apartment, and you cannot go in somebody's apartment. I'm doing everything I can to try and de-escalate the situation. Now, mind you, this is all happening where one of the guys is laying in a sleeping bag up against her door. There's needles everywhere on the ground. There's tar heroin that's on the ground. There's candles, lighters, all kinds of shit. So there is another, like, the second crackhead is kind of like off to the side. So we're getting into this argument, and I'm like, you gotta fucking go. The guy jumps up off the ground. His pants are halfway down, and he's got his needle stuck into his hip. So I step back, and I'm like, listen, get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm not asking anymore. I'm fucking telling you. So while this happens, he starts walking down away from the building. The second one runs up at me and, like, literally tries to attack me. So I take this person, I put him on the ground, and I'm literally, like, just hands-on with this person. Like, I just have put them on the ground. I didn't hurt them. I really could have, but I didn't. I just kind of swept their legs out from underneath them. So when this happens, the second one turns back around and starts screaming. Now, the last time I saw this person, they had the needle in their hand, right? So now he's running towards me, screaming, and he falls, trying to stop. And as I reach out to try and push him away from me, he grabs my arm. And when he grabs my arm, he falls to the ground, it twists, and it dislocates my shoulder. Okay? They're both on the ground. They both get up. They run off. And I'm standing there, and my left arm is completely dislocated. I pop my shoulder back into place, and when I do this, I feel immense pain. And for the next 2 weeks, whether I'm sleeping, if I sneeze, trying to shower, like anything, my shoulder will not stay in place. So I end up going to the doctor and having an MRI and having an x-ray done on it, and they find that I have broken part of my scapula. So this is something that I've been dealing with since February. With COVID going on right now, and this not being a dire emergency, they are not allowing me to have surgery until sometime next year. And on top of that, I really can't afford to not work. So I've been in this really weird position of having to work and also having to deal with the pain of this issue, and then also having to deal with the depression of, like, it derailing my workouts and derailing me going to jiu-jitsu, because I absolutely loved coming to jiu-jitsu, up until this situation. So that is the backstory. But as you guys have seen, I've been getting back into working out, slowly trying to get myself back in shape. And one of the things that I kind of came to realize was that I can't avoid self-defense training. Like, the fact that I have this injury doesn't change the fact that I could very much be in a situation where I have to protect myself. And it doesn't absolve me of living in Portland. And you guys have seen what I've posted about Portland. Like, these situations don't just stop because I have a hurt left shoulder. We have a guy that comes to 10th Planet that does not have legs. I'll add a picture of him here. He's a phenomenal guy, and I hope to interview him at some point in time, because he does not let that keep him from going to strength training and training in jiu-jitsu. And he's so dedicated. When he doesn't work out, he's taking notes. And ever since I like realized that and thought about that, I'm like, dude, you've got to get your ass back in the fucking gym. Like, I came in today, I talked to the owner, I talked to the instructor, and I was like, this is what I'm dealing with, what I've been going through. And they're like, bro, like, we'll protect your shoulder. Like, that's all you have to say. Like, we'll work around it. And I had an hour-long class today, and my partner was so respectful, and we had a great workout. He pushed me. I feel like I pushed him, but he was so protective of my injury. And so I wanted to come on here and talk about the 5 principles that I have learned in my time starting in jiu-jitsu. And I know that was a very long introduction, but let's get to it in today's debrief. All right, guys, I want to thank you for joining us for today's debrief. As always, if you're getting any benefit from the videos that we're uploading, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the button that looks like this one. You know the drill, you know the deal, and I'm super happy that you're taking time to listen to my video. So, the first principle that I have learned, and I've learned this before, but this specifically with jiu-jitsu, is the financial commitment to learning. We are all very similar. We come on YouTube, we go to Amazon, we search out all kinds of information. And right now, so much information, more than any time in history, is readily available at our fingertips. If we want to learn how to do almost anything from, make a shirt, to knit a hat, to learn thermonuclear dynamics, we can do that at the entry of a search on Google or here on YouTube. But as students, right, if you truly want to learn something, you have to be comfortable with the financial commitment that comes along with it. Knowledge is not free, and we're getting to a point where we're really starting to not understand that. Everybody that you gain knowledge from, whether it's on this security guard channel or someone from a military standpoint with firearms, or like me here in martial arts, everyone that you're learning from has spent money, has spent time, has committed themselves to becoming someone worthy of sharing information in that field. Even if you're just talking to what we call an OG, somebody in life who's over the age of 45, 50, they've gone through some shit, right? I reached out to a local SWAT team member for Clackamas County, which is outside of Portland, and I just wanted to learn some basics about utilizing an AR. Like, I own 2 AR-15s, but no one's ever really shown me how to properly hold an AR-15 or how to even put a sling in the right way. Did you guys know there's actually a right way to wear your 2-point sling? So I just spent $250 to meet with this guy one day and just go over the basics of an AR. And coming back to jiu-jitsu today, I was out for 4 months. Now, 10th Planet Portland and the owner, Phil Schwartz, they were amazing. The second that this happened, I reached out to them, I told them what happened, and Phil said, listen, I'm going to put your account on hold. You are more than welcome to come in and watch as many classes as you want. You can come in and you can, just do the warm-up, and then you can sit and learn so that you're not, outside of the knowledge base. And when you're ready to come back, you can come back. And I did not really take advantage of that. But when I contacted Phil the other day, I said, listen, I'm ready to come back. And he says, great, we'll go ahead and get your account set back up and we'll charge you. Now, at first, I was kind of like, well, let me get in there and do one class and like make sure I want to come back. But then I thought to myself, no, that's not right. Like, they have a finite amount of spots that they can offer for instruction. On top of that, these guys have put years upon years upon years of honing this craft and learning. And for Phil, for creating this program and owning this gym, that is worth the month's tuition if I'm going to come back in and take that instruction. I have to be okay with that. Guys, we should almost feel obligated to make sure that we are taking care of those people who are sharing their knowledge with us, because it hasn't been free for them and it shouldn't be free for us. That appreciation of financial commitment, it also extends to the appreciation of commitment in general. The people that have been going to jiu-jitsu for the last year and a half, who are making that rank of blue belt, or those people that have put in more time and they've made that rank of purple belt or brown or black, that's something to be admired. And that leads into my second principle that I've learned in jiu-jitsu. The second principle that I've learned to appreciate in jiu-jitsu is rank. Now, being, prior military, I completely understand the rank and file structure. But if anyone has served time in the military, or if you know people that have served time in the military, unfortunately, the idea that you achieve your rank in the military based on your merits and not politics, that's just absolutely not the case. That's one of the reasons that led me to get out of the military. Now, I think that if you're an Army Ranger, you're in Special Forces, you're one of these forward frontline operators, things might be a little bit different. But for those of us in the military who are more in the background, who aren't necessarily service in terms of being on the front lines, right? Those of us who are in those administrative fields, in those maintenance fields, in those support fields, my experience, and I can only talk from my personal experience, I did not see a lot of merit-based promotion. I saw a lot of political, a lot of politics. I saw a lot of brown nosing, a lot of kiss ass, and that's one of the reasons that I left the military. Now, when you get into mixed martial arts, specifically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and again, this is my perception of what I'm seeing here. When I go into this facility and I see the black belts, the brown belts, the purple belts, the blue belts, there is a level of respect based on that rank, because it's like you can't fake being an upper level practitioner of jiu-jitsu or being an upper level practitioner of any martial arts. You just can't. You either can do it or you can't. I was sitting there today and listening to my instructor in one of the sequences that we were doing, and it's so technical, right? When you're watching the UFC or you're watching people who are good at jiu-jitsu, it just looks like they're putting their leg in a certain place and they're passing, or they're getting past a guard, or getting into that mount, or they're applying these submissions, and it just seems almost like happenstance. But listening to my instructor, he is literally breaking down each and every aspect of your hand goes here, you're pressing down, you're pulling the elbow into his side, you're taking your left leg and you're moving it up to his shoulder, you're pointing your toes behind you. It's so technical, and that is information and ability that you can't fake, right? So that rank structure and knowing where you fall in line when you come in every single day, that's something that is just, I really appreciate the fact that, unlike what I was involved in the military, that is completely merit-based. Those people have been committed to coming to this gym. Those people have been committed to learning and getting better and putting themselves through a fire. Just in that first class back, I got choked out 7 times, right? Like, having someone that's physically dominating you, and I'm a pretty big guy, it gives you a really clear level of respect for what you're doing. So that rank would be the second principle that I've learned to respect being involved in jiu-jitsu. Which brings me to number 3, which is actually respect, right? If you walk into a situation, and a lot of us, we can fake a lot of things, especially in security or law enforcement. You can put on a uniform, you can throw on a plate carrier, you can grab your firearm, you can have all the gadgets and all the stuff. But when you walk into a jiu-jitsu school or an MMA school, and you walk in and you know that you are at the water hole. Now, what's the water hole, right? If you guys have ever watched those like Planet Earth shows where they talk about the animals in the desert, right? The lions, the tigers, the elephants, the hyenas. There's always one scene where it shows the water hole. And it's like all of these animals, there's only one water hole in the entire, Sahara desert, and they all congregate. And when they're there, everybody's staying on their side, in their area. Everybody's eyes are up and they're all watching, right? Because at that point in time, everybody knows where they fall in the pecking order. The elephants are like, look, I'm not as fast as this lion, I'm not as fast as this cheetah, but I will stomp you the fuck out. The lions are like, I'm not as big as the elephant, but I will rip you apart. The alligator's like, listen, I'm not really even on land, but you motherfuckers are in my house, and I will fuck you up. That is exactly what it's like. Barring the fact that everybody is super respectful when you go into these MMA gyms, it is so easy to pick up on that. You can look at each person as they're walking into the gym, and you can kind of get an idea of, is this the person that you should be testing or not, right? And on the street, would this person fuck me up? And there's a lot of people in there that will. Like, these are some absolute killers. And I think that for security guards, this is so important, because we can give ourselves this false sense of security, right? We don't have that backup. We don't have anyone that's coming to help us. We don't have an emergency response for the most part. And a lot of times you can see people and you can misidentify someone. And so kind of having an appreciation for seeing people in this environment and having someone physically wrestle with you. How many times in your life as a guard right now, if you're not involved in mixed martial arts, if you're not involved in Jujitsu, how many times do you physically wrestle or fight with someone where they're literally trying to choke you, they're literally trying to submit you, they're pinning you down, they're imposing their will on you, right? So if you're not going through that, if you're not experiencing that, you're kind of living in this false sense of security, pun intended, that you can protect yourself. So this would be that third principle I think is so important. Which brings me to number 4, which is self-awareness. Guys, listen, I have never been more aware of how much of a tough guy I'm not than when I first started and when I came back today. Like, if you catch me on any given day, like, I feel like I can handle myself. I feel like I can protect myself, and for the most part I can. Listen, we all can. Like, I don't think any of us are any bitch, right? But the truth is that there are people out there that will really hurt you. There are people that will really hurt you. I will never forget, after my second week of being at 10th Planet, so this was earlier in the year, right? My instructor, his name was Sam, and he's like maybe 5'5", 5'6", maybe. He's super long, super wiry. I'm working at a retail establishment all the way across the river, like 30 minutes from where I live and 30 minutes from where 10th Planet Portland is. And, everybody's wearing masks and everybody's got like normal clothes on, and I'm standing there, watching. This guy walks in, and from across the registers, he's like just staring me down, and he's looking at me, and he points. And I'm looking at this guy, and like, he's dressed like everybody else in Portland, and, he's kind of a smaller, wiry guy. And my initial thought was, this motherfucking like meth head is trying to mad dog me. You know what I mean? So I like stand back and just kind of look at him, and, I kind of keep an eye on him. So I watch him go down the home aisle. I watch him go down the produce aisle. And every time he comes around the corner, he's looking at me and he points. I'm like, what the fuck is this dude's problem? So long story short, he goes through the register, checks out, and he goes around and he looks up and he walks right by me and he goes, "What's up, Damien?" I'm like, how does this guy know my names? And he's like, "And I recognize you by your tattoos." And he pulls his mask down, and it's my instructor, Sam. right? So like I'm literally sizing this guy up thinking like at any given moment he's gonna come over and start some shit and I'm gonna whoop his ass if I have to, right? Wrong. That was my instructor from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and he would have mopped the floor with me, okay? And he would have sent me back in a body bag. That is a complete lack of self-awareness earlier in my time as a security guard. Like I'm at a point now where I don't underestimate anyone. Like I don't look down on anyone. I don't underestimate anyone. I don't take for granted that someone could be armed. And these are things that unfortunately, you know, when you first start security, or maybe you've been doing it for a long time and you get complacent, you start to forget this. And that is what leads to people getting hurt, people getting fired, people getting killed, right? These are things that you have to be aware of every single day. So putting yourself in a situation where you're taking classes at a reputable program and you're doing jiu-jitsu every single day when you go in, you're very self-aware of the people that you're around. If you were to go into this gym and look around, everybody looks different. Yeah, some people have tattoos and some people clearly look like MMA fighters, right? Like I'm not talking about them, but so many everyday people are in here, right? Little scrawny, wiry guy, little overweight guy, me, little guy with a, extra spare tire, right? There's all kinds of people that come here that you would never think are legitimate badasses, but they are. So putting yourself in a situation where you're doing something like this, it makes you keenly aware of how tough you're not and how to not underestimate people based on how they look. Self-awareness, that's number 4. Okay guys, my 5th, my final, and my most important principle that I've learned by getting into jiu-jitsu is appreciation, right? I am appreciative for my instructors, specifically the fact that these guys are so good that in these all levels classes where you have white belts all the way up to whatever, these instructors are so patient. Like they're working with the people that are new. We had a guy, it was his first day, working with the first day guys, all the way to the people that have been there for years. And they don't change their level of instruction. They tailor it a bit, they modify it a bit, but they're so attentive. They call you by your name, they are making corrections, they're making adjustments. And I know that you're thinking about like, well, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do, that's what you're paying them to do. But that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of bad instructors out there, but I haven't come across any at 10th Planet. And I'm very appreciative to that. I'm very appreciative to the environment that they have set up where if you're injured or you're a lower belt, you can work with a higher belt. You can work with someone who's more advanced that understands how to maybe protect certain aspects of your health, right? But I'm also appreciative for people's level of restraint. And that's the one thing that I want to take from this class today and from all of my time since I've gotten into jiu-jitsu is restraint. Working with someone that if he wanted to, could mount you, could tap you, could submit you, could harm you that fast. But they don't. They use just the amount of pressure necessary to execute the movement, to get through the sequence without hurting you. And that is something that security guards really, really, really need to take to heart. So many times I see security guards coming in hot, yelling, screaming, cussing, talking down to people, completely out of line. Use some restraint. Show some restraint. Show some compassion. I was shown a lot of compassion today by being back in my first class after 4 months and having an injured shoulder. I got a great workout in. I learned some technique. I practiced some technique. But at no point in time was I ever in danger. And that needs to be the approach that as guards we take to dealing with people, specifically with people who are unruly, disorderly, or putting themselves in a situation where we have to go hands-on. We need to exercise and show that restraint. And that appreciation for the restraint that was shown to me, that is the principle that I'm going to take home with me today. And I want you guys to take home with you, okay? As always, I appreciate your time. Please be safe, watch your 6, and be great. And sign up for jiu-jitsu. Be great.